Hola amigos, welcome to the beautiful Mexico City. I have been having a wonderful time here for the last 2 weeks, but we'll be heading on to Cancun in the next couple of days before heading on to somewhere else. Hope you guys will be surprised by my choices. What I wanted to do before I left the city is actually do a sort of sit-down video of the sort of impression that Mexico City has left on me if I'm looking at it through the lens as a possible place to live as an expat. I've touched on it a bit in prior videos that I am kind of at this stage of my life where I'm starting to think more seriously about where I want to have a home base. Now that's not to say that I'm going to stop, doing what I'm doing, stop traveling. I think it's just going to be more of a transition where I'm not traveling full time, like most of the year. I basically do just want some more stability in my life, and I'd like to invest in real estate. I'd like to have my own place, and I'd like it to be in a place that I really love. So in this video, I wanted to give you guys my first impressions of the city. Obviously, I'd have to come back for a much longer period of time to really give a thorough sort of impression of what it's like to live here. But just from first impressions, these are my thoughts. And also at the end of the video, I'll give you guys a little tour of the apartment that I am currently staying at that I got on Airbnb. My first impressions of Mexico City. It's big. I mean, it's a city of 22 million people with the metro area. It is an enormous city, and I have only seen, a tiny portion of it. I think you would have to live here for at least a few months and have a local kind of take you around and show everything because it is very overwhelming in size. So far, I would also say that it's a very cosmopolitan sort of city. It's very diverse. It really changes from district to district. You can kind of feel like you're in two different worlds, with a few blocks of difference. And another thing that I really like about it is that it's quite laid back. Like there hasn't been any area of the city that I've been in where people feel, really stuck up or like really busy and just like an angry look on their face. Like that kind of stuff can happen in, cities like New York or even in Toronto and certain parts of the city. Like some people just look like they're really on the edge and, everything's just go, go, go. But here in Mexico City, I would say that it's a very relaxed, friendly, more of a strangely slower paced large city that I've been in so far. That's a very general way that I think I describe my impressions of the city so far, but I also made a pros and cons list that I wanted to share with you guys of some things that I would definitely take into consideration if I was going to move here, and maybe these things might be insightful to you guys, even if you're just planning on traveling here as a tourist. Like these are still really good things to know. The first thing on the list, and an obvious for me, is the fact that it is quite English friendly. There's obviously a lot of reasons for this, but obviously the largest being the fact that Mexico is on the border with the United States, and obviously both countries have kind of cross-influenced each other. There's a lot of, Americans who live here, and obviously a lot of tourism that comes to Mexico is from Canada and USA. And as much as I'd like to say that obviously if I moved to a country where they didn't speak English, I would try and learn the language that is spoken there, but there's no denying that English is the language that I feel most comfortable in. Like even if we're comparing English to me speaking Russian, I don't feel fully comfortable speaking Russian as my dominant language. So for me, in choosing a place to live, it is super important that at least English is fairly well known in that country, or that they have, you know, a large expat sort of community that does speak English. Now, speaking about safety, because for me personally, that's like up here, like that's a top priority about the place that I would choose to live. I think it's safe to say that Mexico City isn't perfect. You know, it's obviously not going to make the list for the safest cities in the world anytime soon. But having said that, I think it is actually more concentrated in certain areas of the city, ones that, you know, tourists probably wouldn't be going to for any reason. And there are areas of the city that, from my, you know, first impressions, I felt incredibly relaxed and I felt very safe. Now, that's not to say that you can totally just like put your guard down here. Like, stuff obviously still happens even in the districts like, you know, Polanco, which is super affluent, or Roma Norte or Juarez. I know I'm always using Japan as a reference for safety, but that is just because I can't let go of the fact of how nice it was to be in Tokyo. And like, you could literally just like, you know, leave your wallet on the seat and probably 95% chance nobody is going to take it. Walking around at all hours of the night as a lone female, like, it's fantastic. So yes, even though Mexico City by no stretch is perfect safety-wise, this is on the pros list because overall I would say I felt more safe and calm here in Mexico City than I have in any of the other major cities that I visited in Colombia or Brazil. The other thing that I really like about Mexico City is that it is quite modern. It does have a lot of great amenities, really nice restaurants, fairly good public transit system, to be honest. Like, I know some people kind of warned me about taking the metro system here, especially at rush hour, but to be honest, I found it to be fine. And they even have like women and children only carts, which I think is a great idea to kind of lessen any kind of sexual harassment. The cost of living is obviously another big plus, especially if you are comparing it to Canada or USA. I would say compared to Canada on a whole, maybe it's about 30 to 40% less. The weather is fantastic. I mean, other than the possibility of earthquakes, this definitely beats minus 30, minus 40 in Saskatchewan. And lastly, one thing that of course I find important is that Mexico City, being such a large hub, does make it fairly easy to get to other destinations in the world. Like, I mean, Canada and America would obviously be the easiest and probably not so expensive to go visit my parents at home in comparison to if I was living in Europe. You obviously have easy access to the rest of Central and South America. It'd be really great to be able to fly to those destinations for not as much money and not as long of a trip. But that point alone actually transitions me to the cons list. And the thing is, for me personally, I do see myself spending a lot of time in Europe and also Southeast Asia. Like, those are parts of the world that I would actually say that I have a lot of different places I want to explore there, especially in the next few years. So if I was living here and my house was here, I think it would make things a little bit more tricky because I would be taking such a long flight to ever come all the way back. But obviously right now, Europe is going through it, and I wouldn't make any kind of choice about living there until the war is come to an end and things are sorted out and everybody is rebuilding. So that whole conversation is obviously on the back burner. Now, moving on with the other cons that I have on my list is that so far I would say I haven't really found the kind of apartment that I would be, looking for if I was to purchase a property. And to be honest, like, some of the places in the areas that I'm interested in are quite a bit more expensive, than I was expecting, because, all the foreigners are choosing to live in those areas, so it becomes even more expensive. Another con is that I don't think I will ever fully blend in, so to say. And that's not always like a terrible thing per se, but one thing actually being here in the historical district, almost right on the border of Lagunilla, which is, very local. There are no gringos, in this area. I'm literally the only tourist in this area that I have seen. So from that experience, overall it has been fine. Like I said, most of the people are super friendly here, super laid back. There's nothing to worry about. But at the same time, especially with the men, sorry to call it out, but it is what it is. The men in the very local districts here in the city, I have felt quite uncomfortable in, because in comparison to literally anywhere else that I have been in the last few years, like it's on a whole other level here where they just stare. Like they literally, like a guy will cross paths with me and stop and like just stare at me, or be like across the way and just be like looking me up and down in a super creepy way, unabashedly, and it just makes me super uncomfortable. When I was in the more expat friendly areas, I didn't find that to be as much of an issue. Like it still definitely happens sometimes. It makes me incredibly sad that for the majority of the world, the dangers of especially just being a woman, being out by herself, is like a constant threat, that you have to do so many things, like keep it in the back of your head of like, I have to do this, I have to do that. No, I can't just, exist in the world without the risk of being assaulted and, not being able to have nice things and not being able to dress in the way you want. Of course, this is a super privileged position. Like I'm 100%, aware of how good I have had it in my life to be able to be raised in a place, small town Saskatchewan, where I have really never had to worry about that kind of stuff that much. And then even in the other cities that I have lived in, like Toronto and Tokyo and Kiev, like these are really not that big of issues there. They have other issues. There's definitely other issues, that people face in those countries, but safety really isn't that big of a factor. Now, to end off my video, before I actually give you my final thoughts of whether I would come back to Mexico City to really test it out, like, to actually live here for at least a month or two, rent an apartment in the district that I'm super interested in, that kind of thing, I wanted to give you a tour of this Airbnb that I am staying at here near the historic district, and just give you guys an idea of prices if you are coming here as a tourist. So this is my very spacious studio apartment, I would call it, because there aren't any actual walls. They did put a cute divider in here for the bedroom. And then instead of using an actual wall, they actually put in a really good storage space, which I appreciate, because then I can hide all of my luggage, put my clothes away. I thought that this was actually a really good idea. And then over here we have the living room, and I love how much natural light it gets. That was definitely one of the reasons that I wanted to stay here. We have a nice table that I can work at. The kitchen overall has everything you need. And as I mentioned before, this apartment is kind of on the border of the historic district, and I am paying $45 US a night, which, to compare with other similar sorts of places in, let's say, Roma Norte or La Condesa, it would almost be double that for the dates that I was looking at. And to be honest, the other really big selling point for this apartment was the 24-hour security and also the amazing rooftop. So let me give you guys a tour of that. Starting with the mini gym, which was not even in the Airbnb listing because, it is small. There's not really a lot of equipment, but it is good. Like, it's good to have a treadmill, a bike, an elliptical. And then with the main portion, let me actually start with the view. The view is spectacular because we are in the historical center. You do see these beautiful cathedrals all around, and you are one of the higher buildings in the area. But let's go back to the indoor portion since it is really nice. We have a sofa, a sort of sound system. There is Wi-Fi in here. There's some nice tables where you could do some work. And then over here in the outdoor portion, they also have some really good seating. You know, if you had quite a few people, you could actually do a sort of dinner party or something like that, or have your morning coffee out here, a glass of wine for sunset. Really, really nice. And now my final thoughts. Would I live in Mexico City? Or at least I guess I should say give it a trial run, because that is what is really needed to know if this would be my place. The answer is yes. But as I said before, I think Europe and seeing Southeast Asia are still definitely on, you know, the higher levels of my priority list, just because Europe would be incredibly central to all the other places I like to visit. And then Southeast Asia is kind of the area of the world that I haven't really fully explored yet. And I know there's a lot of expats who absolutely love living in those countries. So maybe this year, that would be really great if maybe I could do a full Southeast Asia sort of tour and see what it has to offer. But having said that, it can be more complicated to get permanent residency in Southeast Asian sort of countries compared to Latin America and compared to a few countries in Europe. So that's a whole other conversation that I actually didn't really include in this video because I still have yet to learn all the specifics about the taxation system here in Mexico and getting permanent residency. But from what I did read, it would be, you know, not that difficult in my scenario. So that's a whole other conversation. But just as a first impressions of Mexico City, I have really enjoyed my time here. I would definitely come back. I would absolutely urge you to come visit here as a tourist. There is just so much to see and do. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts down below, especially if you have lived in Mexico City. I would love any tips and suggestions from any kinds of locals or people who have spent a lot of time here. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, keep being your own kind of beautiful. Bye guys.